In the last video, we discussed about what is a second ledger, what is its significance, and what are the different data conversion options available when we are creating a second ledger. Now in this video, I'll show you how to create that second ledger in Fusion environment. This is Arvind Varganti and you are watching Oracle EBS and Fusion Financial channel. Okay, so for creating of the second ledger, this is the task, manage secondary ledger. And if you look at this PPT, couple of steps which are involved apart from creating of the second ledger. So first we'll start with the creating of a second ledger. So this is the task, manage secondary ledger. So let's get into Fusion environment. Under financials offering, go to the functional area, general ledger, and here look for the manage secondary ledger task. So always secondary ledger is created against a primary ledger. So when you need to create a second ledger, you need to specify the primary ledger against which we are creating the second ledger. So you need to specify the scope. So here the scope is already defaulted. This is my primary ledger, Reliance USD ledger US, and click on apply and go to task. So this being a testing environment, there are other people who have created different second ledgers under my primary ledger. So I'll just ignore these things. If I want to disable any of these second ledger, I can keep my cursor here. I think this is the only one which is active. Yeah, I can keep my cursor here and I can click on disable conversion. Once we disable the conversion, system will stop pushing the data from primary to second ledger. So in a real world client environment, this also happens. Like after we have used the second ledger for a couple of months, business users might decide that they do not want the data to be pushed into second ledger. So in those cases, you need to come to this screen and then select your second ledger and then click on disable conversion. So you can see that once you click on this button, it throws a warning message. Disabling the conversion to the second ledger will permanently stop propagation of the new accounting entries. You will be able to use the second ledger for historical reporting purpose. Do you want to continue? I just say yes. Okay, so that's the existing one which was created by somebody. Now let me try to create my second ledger. So when I click on plus, it gives me this screen where I can create the second ledger. So this is my primary ledger and this is the second ledger. So if we go back to our spreadsheet which we discussed in our last session, this is the second ledger which I will be creating in today's session. So this would be sub-ledger level second ledger. So this is the name, and just put a Y. Oh, I can just put a Y. Reliance INR sub-ledger level secondary, and Reliance INR sub-ledger level secondary. That's the description. Chart of accounts. Chart of accounts is, this is the name of chart of accounts. I want to use the same chart of accounts as that of my primary ledger. Calendar. This is the calendar for my primary ledger. I want to use this calendar for my second ledger. April to March calendar, and the currency is INR. For my primary ledger, the currency is USD. For second ledger, I want to use INR. And accounting method, which is also called a sub-ledger accounting method, or SLAM, standard accrual, and data conversion level. So these are the four options. As I mentioned in my previous video, adjustment only, balance, journal, sub-ledger. Now I want to go for sub-ledger. Click on save and close. So that is the first step, creating of the second ledger. Now next thing is I need to do specify ledger options. So specify ledger option. So when I click on specify ledger option, I need to select the scope. This is the primary, and my secondary ledger is this is the one, right? Oh, there are the same. Yeah, this one, RY. Yeah, so this is my secondary ledger. I'll select this secondary ledger. And here you need to specify certain ledger options. So this is my ledger name, description, currency, chart of accounts, calendar, what is my first accounting period or first open period. I would say September 24 is my first open period. And how many future enterable periods? I just want to say one. Accounting method, standard accrual, general language, American English, retained earnings account. So let me specify the retained earnings account. Even though you have multiple companies within this ledger, you can just use any one such company. Retained earnings account. Default period and rate type. So generally your period and rate type, period average rate type, translation adjustment account are used when you run your translation process in this ledger. So this being not mandatory, so I'm just not setting them up in this second ledger. What else? Enable general and manual subledger entry approval. Yes, I want to enable the general approval. So I just say yes. If I check this checkbox, you get a pop-up message. You have enabled general approval for so-and-so ledger. You must define rules in approval management. Okay, close. Scroll down. Enable intercompany accounting. Yes, I have more than one company, so I want to enable this intercompany accounting. So if you do this, you need to set up some rules, which is fine. Yeah. And general reversal criteria, if you want, you can specify the general reversal criteria, which will be used by your automatic reversal program. So I'm just not entering any general reversal criteria and just saying save and close. So that completes the second step, specify ledger option. And the third step is complete primary to second ledger mapping. Complete primary to second ledger mapping, that's the task. My scope is already selected. So this is the source representation. So this is the source ledger where the data will be pushed from your source primary ledger into second ledger. What is the default conversion rate type? So in my current example, the currency of my primary ledger is USD, whereas the currency of second ledger is INR, and hence system needs some kind of a conversion rate type to be used when it is converting the numbers from USD to INR. So I want to use a conversion rate type of corporate. So that means the exchange rates which are defined under corporate exchange rate type will be used by the system when it is pushing the data from your primary ledger to the second ledger. When you, I mean, that would be for manual posting journals. And when you are running create accounting program in the from the sub ledger, so that program will also use this conversion rate type when it is pushing the data to your second ledger. Missing conversion rate type option. So what do you want system to do if the conversion rate is not available for a specific transaction or for specific transaction date? Whether you want the system to use the last rate. So if I specify use the last rate, so that means let's assume if there is an invoice which has a transaction date of today's date, which is 27th of September 2024, within the system, if there is no exchange rate available for September 27, 2024, system will look for the last rate available. If there is rate available for September 26th, it will use that. If there is no rate available even for September 26th, it will go and check if there is a rate available for September 25 and so on. If I say report error, then obviously your posting program or create accounting program will throw an error message if the exchange rates are not available. Okay. And as I mentioned in my previous video, we have an option to specify certain general sources and general categories to be excluded if need by. So here you can see general source of other and general category of other is set as yes. So that means all general sources and all the general categories, the journals which are created with all general sources and general categories would be pushed to your second ledger. And here you can see there are two journals sources and categories where we have set it as no. So that means these two general source and general categories, the journals which are created with this specific general source and general category will not be pushed to second ledger. Yeah, so I have seen this in most of my clients wherein they do not want the revaluation entries which are created in the primary ledger to be pushed to the second ledger because the accounting conventions which are used in your primary ledger and second ledger might be different. So revaluations which is calculated as per the accounting standard. Probably if the primary ledger is using say US GAAP and second ledger is using say maybe say Indian GAAP or some other GAAP, so probably the rules would be different, and hence they want certain accounts to be revalued in primary ledger but not in second ledger, and vice versa. So that's the one of the reason why uh, we will have a business rule or business requirement to ensure that the journals which are created with the source of revaluation should not be pushed to second ledger. And then again in second ledger, based on the business requirements, the users might set up different revaluation templates and generate the revaluation entries. Okay, so let me click save and close. And another user has changed the row primary key. I don't know why we are getting this error. So let me go and check if our changes are saved. Okay, looks like it's not saved. Let me try once again. Save and close. Okay, let me requery, see. Okay, now our changes are saved. Okay, that's fine. So that's the step, and the last step is manage chart of accounts mapping. So search for the task, manage chart of accounts mapping. Again, this being a testing environment, so you have different chart of accounts mappings, which was created by different users. So let me click on plus. So I just want to create a mapping between your primary chart of accounts and secondary chart of accounts. So the naming convention would be Reliance USD PL to Reliance INR subledger SL. SL is secondary. PL is primary. So I can just put a description as Reliance USD primary ledger chart of accounts to Reliance INR sub-ledger level secondary ledger chart of accounts mapping. Okay, what is the target chart of accounts? So if you go back to this spreadsheet, this is my target, which is second ledger. We are pushing the data from primary to secondary, and hence in this case, primary is the source and secondary is the target. So the target is Reliance USD ledger. And what is the source? Source is primary. And in primary ledger, what is my chart of accounts? So you might now ask a question as to what is the reason why we need to do this chart of accounts mapping when my primary chart of accounts and my secondary chart of accounts are same. There is a reason for that. Now I'll explain you. So once you set up this under segment rules, say take company as an example. So here you have four options: use roll-up value, assign single value, copy value from, not assigned. So I use the word copy value from. So when I use the word copy, the method to copy value from source, I just want the data of all the companies in the source to be copied to the same company in target. Sorry, this is target and this is source. So let's assume I have two companies, 003 and 004. So I want the data of 003 under source to be pushed into secondary with the same company code of 003. Similarly, I want the data of 004 under source to be pushed into second ledger with the same company of 004. Okay. Now let me complete this one as well. I just want to use the same thing. Okay. Now take an account as an example. So as far as account is concerned, generally what I have seen in my most of the clients is either you go for copy value from source and then again use the same account here. That's one option. And another option is basically use roll-up rules. So when you say use roll-up rules, this change will delete the source of continue. Okay. So when I say roll up values, so here you can specify, okay, what is the target? I can say the target is, say, let's assume I have different bank accounts, right? cash checking account, cash clearing account, Citibank, HSBC, Barclays, whatever, right? So you have all these are in the 1 series, right? So I can say that in the target, I want all the accounting entries which are pushed from source into primary, so from source which is primary into secondary under this particular account if they are between this range. Maybe 1199. So what this says is there are different bank accounts in primary ledger, but my requirement is all the accounting entries which are created with those different bank accounts should be pushed into my secondary ledger only with this particular account number or your account segment value. That's the one of the business reason, right? And again, for intercompany, again, if you do not want any intercompany segment to be used in, say, second ledger, what you can say, assign single value. And you can say 000. So that means if the intercompany segment is 003, 004, 005, or whatever the intercompany segment in my second primary ledger, I want all those entries to be pushed into my second ledger only with an intercompany value of 00. That's the default value. So this is the one of the business reason why we use chart of accounts mapping. So even though you have the same chart of accounts, you might have this kind of a business requirement, and hence Oracle has provided this particular option to do the chart of accounts mapping. And if you want to be a very straightforward, you do not want to get into all these complications, yes, you can just say copy value from source for all the segments and then you use the same segment under source and target. Save and close. Done. Okay, that completes the main steps which are required for creating of the secondary ledger. Now what I'll do is I will assign this particular secondary ledger to my user, and I'll also open the period, and then in my next video I'll show you how to create journal entries in the primary ledger, and then how we can push that journal entries into the secondary ledger, and also how we can create the journal entries directly in the second ledger. Thank you. Thanks for watching my video. For interesting videos on Oracle, EBS and Fusion Financials, please do subscribe to my channel. Thank you.